Hello, I'm the EDC academic. Thanks for watching. In this video, I'm going to review the MKM Campo 8. For those unfamiliar with the Campo 8, I'll share a few images on the screen. The Campo 8 comes in this box, and in that box it is contained within this little plastic sleeve there, and it also contains a pamphlet about the warranty information and care of the knife, and this little tool, which is the tool that you will need if you ever want to disassemble the knife or replace the scales. I'm going to put that back to the side. MKM stands for Maniago Knife Makers, so the Campo is made in Italy. It is one of several knives in the Campo series, along with the Campo 6 and the Campo 7, the numbers designating the number of implements that unfold from the knife. But the Campo 8 is exclusive to Knife Center. What MKM is doing with the Campo series is appealing to customers who like Swiss Army style knives but want more premium materials and an elevated experience when handling the knife. And to that end, I think that MKM really has a winner on their hands. I'll go ahead and spoil the review and say that I love this knife. I'll make a few critical comments about the knife in the review portion of this video, but taken in the round, this is a great product and I highly recommend it. Now, I'm going to describe the Campo 8 as being inspired by Victorinox's famous Huntsman, but I don't regard it as a competitor to that knife for two main reasons. First, I think that it is highly unlikely that the MKM Campo 8 would be a person's first Swiss Army style knife. In fact, I think that anyone considering the Campo 8 probably already owns a Huntsman in addition to several other Victorinox products. Second, the Huntsman and the Campo 8, despite their similarity in style and function, are appealing to different sections of the market, with Victorinox appealing to customers looking for bang for the buck quality and utility, and with MKM appealing to customers looking for high performance steel and other modern elements. But though I don't think that the Campo 8 is going to take any customers away from Victorinox, it is definitely playing in the same space. And it even seems to be weighing in on a debate within the Victorinox community, Phillips versus corkscrew. There are many Victorinox models, such as the Huntsman / Fieldmaster, and this is my Huntsman, and it is the same thing as a Fieldmaster with the exception that the Fieldmaster has a Phillips, a backside Phillips in place of the corkscrew. Other than that, they are identical knives. And there are a couple of other Victorinox products that are like that. The Camper and the Hiker are differentiated by whether they have the corkscrew or not. The Camper has the corkscrew. The Hiker has the Phillips head. The Climber and the Super Tinker, the Climber has the corkscrew, the Super Tinker has the Phillips head. And that is the only difference between some of those knives. And none of the Victorinox knives at the time of recording this have both a Phillips head and a corkscrew. The Campo 8, so somewhat playfully, has both of those things. Of course, the most important distinguishing feature of the Campo 8 is the main blade. And with it, MKM is addressing one of the main complaints that people have about Victorinox knives, because Victorinox uses a very basic steel, a very basic stainless steel. And while the basic stainless steel that Victorinox uses is economical and easy to maintain, it lacks the performance that many knife enthusiasts crave. And for that type of consumer, the M390 steel on the Campo 8 is a welcome upgrade and offers a huge jump in performance over a standard Victorinox product. Another difference between the Huntsman and the Campo 8 is the small blade. The small blade on the Campo 8 is serrated. You can see the comparison of the size and you can see the serrations there. I apologize for that edit. I realized that I had forgotten to bring out a few visual aids. I was talking about the serrations on the small blade of the MKM and how they were sort of small and kind of tooth-like. And I'm mentioning that because it's different from standard, if there is such a thing, serrations on knives. Most knives that have serrated edges have serrated edges that are sort of wavy. You see in this original Leatherman Super Tool. I got this in 1994, and as you can see, it's very well used. The serrations here are sort of wavy with the occasional little pointy tip on them. And we see the same thing in this older original Gerber multi-tool, back whenever Gerber was still making their multi-tools in the United States. And here you see the sheep's foot serrated blade, and once again it's wavy and with the occasional pointed tip, and that's very different in style than what MKM has gone with here with their serrations. That in and of itself is not a criticism. I'm just pointing that out as a difference from what people might be led to think that the serrated blade looks like, whenever it's actually quite different. Those were the major differences between the Campo and the Huntsman. The main blade and the backside tools and the small blade. Minor differences include the wood saw, which is bidirectional on the Victorinox. If I can pull the saw blade out there. On the Campo, it is unidirectional, meaning that it only cuts on one stroke, on the pull stroke. The Victorinox is bidirectional, meaning that it will cut on both the forward and the back stroke. The placement of the openers, the opener layer, is also different. On the Campo, the opener layer has the can opener on the hinge that's opposite the main blade. On the Victorinox, it has the can opener on the same side of the hinge of the main blade, and the screwdriver is opposite. So that's another minor difference that exists between them. Another obvious difference between the Campo and the Victorinox is the absence of scale tools on the Campo 8. Oh, I forgot to mention the flathead on the Victorinox has a half stop, whereas the flathead on the Campo does not have a half stop. So that's another minor difference that exists between them. And another difference between the Campo and the Victorinox Huntsman is that Victorinox Huntsman has the hook, the multi-purpose hook on the back, and there is no multi-purpose hook on the back of the Campo. Now, I realize that for most people, the hook is neither here nor there, so the absence of the hook on the Campo isn't really going to be an important difference. But I wanted to point that out nonetheless. But even though it's lacking a couple of tools that the Huntsman has, it doesn't have the scale tools, it doesn't have the multi-purpose hook. Apart from the aforementioned high-performance steel, the Campo features polished micarta scales and Torx construction, which is a significant upgrade from the Celador scales that are just friction fitted to the Victorinox. So while the Campo doesn't offer everything that the Huntsman does, it does have some features that the Huntsman doesn't. So now for the review. Even though I don't think the Campo 8 is in competition with the Huntsman, I'm still going to do a side-by-side review of the respective functions, just because the Huntsman is the standard and most people will already be familiar with how it performs. The main blade. The main blade on the Campo is a definite improvement over that offered by Victorinox. As I've already said, the Victorinox is just a simple stainless easy to maintain, but also very quick to get dull. The MKM has the M390 steel, which is a definite, upgrade. It is an objectively higher quality steel than the quality of steel that you find in the Victorinox. The small blade. I've already sort of mentioned the small blade. And I don't think that there's anything wrong with the small blade on the Campo. It's fine. It's not the super steel that is in the main steel. I think it's a 420, but it's a fine steel. It's probably still better than the basic stainless that Victorinox is using. But even though I don't think there's anything wrong with the small blade on the Campo, I think that it represents a missed opportunity. For most people, the small blade on a Victorinox is either reserved as a backup blade for when the main blade gets dull, which will happen quickly because of the aforementioned soft steel, or they will use the small blade as a tool for making precise and whittling cuts, so you can really get a good purchase on the knife in your hand, and with your block of wood you can get in there and you can really do some fine carving on it without needing to use this sort of rather large unwieldy blade when you're going in for fine work. The serrations on the small blade of the Campo are interesting because we don't need a secondary blade on the Campo for the purpose of preserving an edge, because we have the main blade with the super steel on it. It's super steel. It has a sharp, the sharpness on this is already going to be lasting a long time. So again, you don't need a second blade held in weight. And because they put serrations on the small blade, now it can't be used for whittling purposes either, because you're going to be getting rough cuts instead of smooth, rounded cuts the way you would want if you were into whittling. Thus, neither of the two reasons for including a small blade are satisfied by the secondary blade of the Campo 8. Instead of a serrated small blade, I think that Knife Center should have requested that MKM include a nail file, a file with a tip for nail cleaning, such as that found on the Victorinox Sportsman, which we see here, or the, actually I take that back, this is the Victorinox Companion, or the Victorinox Sportsman. I don't have a Victorinox Sportsman, I have a similar model by Wenger, the now discontinued Highlander. The difference between the files being that the one on the Victorinox is the cut file, the one on the Wenger is the diamond file. But I would have preferred either one of these style of files over the serrated small blade that you find on the Campo. Back to the saw. I was mentioning the saw earlier and how the saw on the Campo is unidirectional, whereas the saw on the Victorinox is bidirectional. And one other quick note here before I proceed with that comment, I do want to point out an oddity that really does speak to Victorinox's prowess in terms of what they're able to do. You'll notice that the Victorinox Huntsman is smaller. It is shorter in length, and the blade is shorter than what you find on the MKM Campo. But interestingly, the Victorinox has a longer cutting edge, longer by about 3/8 of an inch. It's amazing that Victorinox is able to fit a saw that has a longer cutting stroke in a shorter knife than MKM does with the longer handle here. But anyway, the advantage, of course, to bidirectional cutting with the Victorinox saw is that you're going to be able to cut in both directions, which in theory means that you're going to be able to cut through stock more quickly. Whereas the MKM Campo, only having unidirectional cutting, in theory is going to be slower at cutting. And that really isn't the case, because with the Victorinox, you start slower because it is cutting in both directions. So it's hard to get, let me get my little wood block again, it's hard to get that first cut started whenever you are engaged in the sawing motion because it is sawing in both directions. But with the MKM Campo 8, you're only cutting on the backstroke, and so you can get a really nice quick first stroke going forward because you're going with the angle of the teeth that gets a nice start, and then you're able to start the cutting motion. So with the Victorinox, you start slower and you cut faster, but with the MKM, you start faster but cut slower. So since most of your cuts with this size saw are going to be on small stock, I think that this is a tie. Moving to the scissors. The scissors on Victorinox are, of course, legendary. And in a certain sense, it is unfair to compare the scissors of anything else to the scissors on a Victorinox. And the scissors on the Victorinox are better than that you find on the Campo, but not by much. The scissors on the Campo are still very good. The standard paracord test, you'll see that, a Victorinox performs exactly as you would expect, both about midway through the scissors and at the very tip. So we'll get right there at the tip, and you'll see that Victorinox has no problem going through it. The Campo, if you put it in at standard cutting depth, also does a good job with the paracord. But whenever you get out to the tip, it just won't do it. You'll see that on that first one, it sort of twisted the paracord, and it was on the second one that it did kind of go through, but not cleanly the way Victorinox does at the very tip. So you have to give Victorinox the nod there. They're excellent scissors. They are legendary scissors. But that being said, the Campo 8 will cut very proficiently through paracord, given that you have it positioned properly. The other tools that we want to compare, the cap lifter and screwdriver. These are equally effective. As you might imagine, the task of opening a cap is all that is requisite to accomplish its reason for being there. And both of these open bottles very effectively. Both screwdriver tips operate very effectively, and both of them will act as a pry bar with the same degree of efficacy. So this is a tie. The Campo, as I mentioned earlier, doesn't have the half stop, but I don't think that is a reason to give the Victorinox the nod. And the Victorinox, as I mentioned earlier, at least I think I mentioned earlier, it does have what is billed as a wire cutter, which is a terrible wire cutter. The people that do use this have a tendency to use this as a wire bender. And this doesn't have a wire bender, but it does have a little lanyard hold there, which you could use just as easily for a wire bender. So again, I think that this is going to be a tie between them. The other small tool here on the opening layer is the can opener. And the can openers are equally effective, but I do want to point out some difference in how they work. The can opener on the Victorinox is designed to be used going forward. So let me grab a can here, and maybe I'll shoot some B-roll footage that shows exactly how it works, because I don't want to open tuna fish right now. But the Victorinox, this style, you put it on the can, and then you'll rotate the can, or you'll rotate the tool forward. As you plunge in, it cuts forward. So then you would back out, scoot it forward, and then you would do it again. And so with the Victorinox, this style of the Victorinox can opener, you're actually going counterclockwise around the can. Now the can opener on the Campo, it looks like your standard Wenger style can opener. Very similar, but notice something key here. The way that the Wenger can opener is canted right there. This, on the side that is the same shape, is totally flat. I don't know how well that's coming out. On the Wenger, it is angled there at the tip. The Wenger is designed to be pulled. So you hold it in your hand the same way as you do the standard Victorinox can opener. With the Victorinox, you're going forward. With the Wenger, you're going backward. So as you use this as the pry point, you're plunging the tip in, and then you're moving backward with your standard Wenger type. What is interesting about the can opener on the Campo 8 is that even though it looks like the can opener on the Wenger, it functions very differently because of where they put it. It's on the opposite side of the knife as you look down on it. And so you're 3 layers away in the depth of the scale from the can. And so it won't latch on because of that. So to use this, you turn it backwards in your hand like this, and you'll put it there. And then you will pry up on it, and then you'll pull your implement toward you as you are rotating the can and making your circumference around it. Again, maybe I will shoot some B-roll footage to actually show how these work at punching through the top of a can. But they're both equally effective. They both do the job. It just comes to a preference as to which direction you prefer to go whenever you're opening a can. Another small difference here, I just declared this a tie, but somebody might want to maintain that the Victorinox is better because it has the little small screwdriver there, which in theory can also be used as a 2-dimensional Phillips driver. But in my 30 plus years of carrying Victorinox products, I have never once used the tip of this as a small flat tip. So maybe other people's experiences are different, but that's my experience. And so I'm going to say that the presence of that really adds nothing to the functionality of this tool. Now, as I mentioned, that same tool here, in theory, can be used to drive some Phillips heads. It obviously won't go into any wood, but if it's flush-mounted screw, you could do it to drive in, or probably not drive in, but to tighten something that was already loose. This Phillips here on the MKM Campo 8 is obviously far superior to this little thing that can perhaps be used as a Phillips under a very limited set of circumstances. So I'll give the win to MKM Campo on that one. And the corkscrew here is the last thing that I want to talk about. And the Huntsman does not come with the... Oh, I just bent my pin that I had there. My pin holder was a little bit loose. I'll have to straighten that out later. The corkscrew on the Huntsman does not come with this little tool. I added that tool to it, so that's how it's going to come from Victorinox. The corkscrew, as you can see, is visually identical to the corkscrew that we have on the Victorinox. It is so similar that you can even use the tools that are designed for the Victorinox. They are fully compatible with the MKM Campo 8. So here are my final thoughts. At the time of recording, the MKM Campo 8 has a list price of about $140. But it is currently on sale for around $95. And even at the regular retail price, I would recommend this knife. With the discounted price being just over twice the cost of Victorinox products with similar tool sets, And here I'm thinking of the Fieldmaster, I am thinking of the Huntsman, and I am thinking of the now discontinued Victorinox Evolution 18. This is a fantastic, oh, excuse me, I was holding the wrong knife. This is a fantastic deal. I mean, there are people out there paying $40 for aftermarket micarta scales to upgrade a $40 Victorinox knife. By the time you include the shipping cost for those custom scales, you're already $90 deep, and you still have the basic stainless steel for the main blade, and you still have the plastic Celador handles that are just force-fitted onto pinned construction. The Campo 8 has some obvious benefits to it. So seen, in that light, these MKM knives are an absolute steal at the discounted price and are still a fair price at standard retail. So if this knife appeals to you at all, I suggest going to Knife Center as soon as possible because they are bound to run out at that price. And one more thing before I go, some of you may have noticed I have this clip here attached to my Huntsman. It's different from the Swiss clip. I don't like the Swiss clip because the Swiss clip blocks access to the tweezers, and I want to have access to the tweezers on my Victorinox knives. This is not a Swiss clip, this is called the Swiss Carry. This is, I think, a New Zealand company. Yeah, designed and hand finished in New Zealand. I'm quite happy with it. I've only been using it for about a month now, but it has been serving me well. It has been very effective. It does the job that you would expect a pocket clip to do. One thing I will point out, though, that even though it doesn't block access to the tweezers, it does partially obscure access to the hook. And I know some of you are thinking, big deal, but some people like the hook, and then some people just dislike the idea of having a tool that you don't have access to. So even though you can't really grab at the hook because one side of it is obscured, and hence the normal way that you would access it is blocked, you can still access it by using another tool. So you just take the, I'm using the little ferro rod, the little Firefly ferro rod that goes in the toothpick holder, and you can use it to sort of push out the hook, and then you have access to it, and then of course it will close without clunking on the clip. So it's not in contact with it, it just butts up against that side and makes it difficult to get a fingernail in there to open it up. But again, all you need to do is take another little implement and pull it out, and then you have access to the multi-purpose hook. And again, how can you not love that multi-purpose hook? Okay, so that is it for today. Thanks again for watching. I will see you again in the next video.